Alright, 15 minutes.
Anyway, you can't get there off of Duffel Bluff Road. You have to actually go around the other way. And to get in there, it's all dirt road. Anyway, we went down there, sat in his cabin, nice little cabin. He had cleared an area around the cabin, and he had some small grass up front where the driveway was. It's just a dirt road. And he had some high grass behind it. To the north and northeast, he had some old growth, and it kind of petered out to a kind of a marshy, watery area, which is more farmland beyond south of that. And then to the southeast was very dense forest that took you up to the bluff and then down to the Puget Sound, the water on the south side of the island there. Anyway, when we got out there, he said, Joe, just a couple of days ago, we had one come by and look in our window, and we saw him running past the grass area. But he had this big window on the back, on the south end of the cabin. We're talking about a one-room cabin, not a very, it was good size for a one-room cabin, but it wasn't immense. And you could see the grassy area and the farmland beyond the little forest there, and the old growth on the left. And I said, great, let me go out and check it out. So I went outside and I went into the high grass area, and sure enough, you could see the footprints and the fanned grass, as well as I traced it coming out of the forest to just directly west. Went through this high grass area, came around to the edge of the high grass where the cleared grass was between the high grass and the cabin. Started walking down to the path where the old growth forest was, and just as where the forest started, planted itself, squatted, and laid some feces on the grass. That was pretty exciting for me because that was my first, physical evidence, whoo, poop. So anyway, I got a Ziploc bag, bagged it all up. It was very interesting. It looked like human feces, except it was like massive, all right? And it had like sprouts in it, bean sprouts type stuff. Anyway, I put it in the Ziploc, threw it in the freezer, called up Grover Krantz. I said, hey, I got some Bigfoot poop. Want me to send it to you? He goes, yeah, that's great, man. Send it on out. I said, okay, I just need it to thaw out before I put it in the mail to you. Thaw out? What are you, a moron? It's useless to me now. Just throw it away. I said, why? I'm not supposed. No, I just put it in the bag and send it. Don't. Freezing it, you gotta kills all the stuff. Anyway, so I threw it out in the front porch of my house, out in the woods. And anyway, going back to that day, went down further, and that's when I found the trail that goes up to the old growth forest. And then from there it goes out into the trail goes around and through across this like marshland back up into that western piece of property. What he was wanting to show me before that was the fact that as he was clearing the grass area in front of his cabin to build it, he found rocks piled up. And as he started to move the rocks, he lifted some rocks up and some snakes came out, and so he kind of decided to leave it alone. Well, as I was clearing more grass, he found 3 other rock mounds, smaller ones. They're small mounds in the sense of 8 to 10 feet long, so many feet wide, so many feet high, about maybe a couple feet high. And he goes, but if you go into let me show you this. So he took us into the patch of old growth that was right there, probably 30, 40 feet from the cabin. You walk into there and you see this well beaten down path. And if you go to the Sir Bigfoot at bettyscottage.com website and you click on the banner, you can see all the pictures of what I'm talking about, because I still have pictures of this stuff, of the path, of the rock mounds and stuff like that. It was a very well used path, and if you stood at the very top, because it was kind of an inclining path through this old growth, if you stood at the top and looked down, you could see a perfect humanoid silhouette in the dead vegetation. Some of it was broken off new, some of it was broken off old, going back to the discoloring or the freshness. But along this path were other rock mounds, very large rock mounds, 15 feet long, 3 or 4 feet tall. I'm giving you estimates that are almost 10 years old now, so but they're large. Rocks about the size of your hand, okay? They're moss colored, so they've been there for a while. But what was interesting about it was these rock mounds were being deliberately covered up. Every one of them had whole whole bushes pulled out of the ground, laid on top. Branches snapped off, laid on top. Some of it fresh, some of it old. So we cleared it off, took some pictures, and then just on the east side of this path, there was this trench. It almost looked like a perk pit, except there was no way they can get backhoe in there to dig this thing out, as well as if there was no signs of shoveling. I stood in this trench, and it came up to about here on me, and it was the same size as these rock mounds, okay, about 12, 13, 14 feet long, 4 or 5 feet wide, so on and so forth. Now this is not like Ireland, where you put your shovel in the ground and you come up with a rock. So it was interesting to know where did they get all these rocks from? Because we're talking about thousands of rocks, all very similar in size. So that's an unanswered question. We call it a burial mound because we really don't know what else to call it, okay? We were going to come later and excavate it, but we had problems later and we couldn't do that. We went out there 2 subsequent times because of other situations he had. The second time we went out there, there were fresh tracks of a juvenile and an adult. What was interesting about that is, again, they came out of that western property, okay, came across that marshland, but the adult stayed on the path, but the juvenile was all over the place. It was really quite funny, actually. But the track would go way back up into that western patch of land. Now we went up there and talked to the landowners, and we were not allowed in there. They refused to let anybody have access to that property. It's a freshwater lake there, or pond. I know that because of the map, and I don't know, someday we'll be able to go back in there. The third time we went out there, it was the time we came out to document with photographs. And I brought my buddy Terry out. We were waiting for the landowner to get there, and as I was down on the trail, I started hearing gunshots. And I ran up, and there's Terry shooting at a log. What are you doing? The gentleman, the owner of the property, was very anti-gun. And so the conditions of us being there is, A, we did not reveal the location of the property. B, we didn't bring any guns, and we didn't bring other people unless I had prior permission. I did have prior permission for Terry to come to take pictures and document everything. When he found out that Terry had opened up with this 30-30 or whatever it was that he was shooting that day, we were asked never to come back again. So, and he was terminally ill with cancer. I don't even know if he's still alive now. So, but I do hope to go back there someday and see if I can get back on the property, and let's see if we can excavate those mounds and see what it really was. On the northernmost mound, we did find some rocks excavated up, more likely from dogs. And there was a bone sitting in there, and I pulled it out. And it looked like a vertebrae when you first look at it. And I took it to some professors. I took it to some butchers because it looked like there was some saw marks in the back. No one could identify it. And half the problem that happens when you go and approach a educated person about this type of thing is the minute you mention you're a Bigfoot researcher, they kind of roll their eyes and tell you whatever you want to hear to get you out of there, okay? Because you have no validity. So it was never identified until just a few months ago when I did a presentation for the IBS, and in the presentation they took pictures, put it up on a forum, and some hunters did identify it as the rear section of a mule deer's skull. So we thought it was an atlas, but the thing is we had to reverse it. And when we did that and started comparing it to other skulls, we're like, oh, okay, well, it's obvious what it is. So the mystery of the mystery bone is no longer a mystery. And Ray Crow emailed me and said, well, that must make you feel real bad that you know that you no longer have a potential Bigfoot bone. And I emailed him back going, yeah, it's kind of a disappointment, kind of like the day when Bigfoot is finally legitimized in the real world as Bigfoot. People are going to have this sorrow that it's no longer the great mystery of our time, but at least at that point in time, Bigfoot will still be Bigfoot, okay? So that was a pretty sad deal, but that's all right. That's all part of education and learning.
I want to make sure we're losing light, so I want to make sure I talk to you about church and everything. And
you want me to talk real briefly about the vocalization on the?
Sure. Yeah, we're running out of light though. That's the only problem. But yeah, go ahead.
After I got out of the Bigfoot game, because right after that point, my contract was renewed. I got laid off, and I moved back to the mainland and got out of that. But I got married in '98. And when we got married, I went back to the island to start a company. And we moved to Admiral's Cove. Admiral's Cove is a remote area. It was built to house retiring admirals, okay, retiring military personnel. But mainly it's used for weekend, people come visit on the weekend if they even come visit on the weekend. We live on Midshire Drive, which tees up to Admiralty Way, okay, which is right off of Highway 20 or 525. And one night, it was right before Christmas, November '98, December '98, and we just come back from Bells Fair Mall in Bellingham. And at this point, I wasn't even in the game. My wife, she got married to me. She knew I was this Bigfoot freak because I had all these photos and I had all these sounds and so on and so forth. So she had heard them before. It wasn't new to her by this time. And when we got to home, my dad, my son, and my wife, they went in the house, and a box of bolts had fallen out of the back of his van, my dad's van. So I was sitting there picking it up. This is like 11:30 at night. And I realized I was hearing dogs howling all over the neighborhood. And it was weird to me because I'd never heard a dog howl in fear before. A dog is a very brave animal. And my hair just standing up on end, I didn't know what was going on. And so I listened. And over the top of this howl, I realized there was a screamer, a howler, a vocalization going on in the woods just south of my house. My wife came back out to help me pick up the stuff, and she started talking to me. I said, shh, listen. And she listened to the dogs howling, and then her eyes went really wide. She realized what she was hearing over the top of the dogs as well. And I stood up, and I stepped out into the road, Midshire Drive, and I walked down towards the end of the road, which T-junction to Admiralty, and there's a big ravine there between two houses. I'm guessing probably 200-300 feet long. It's a pretty large area. And I stood there in the dark. There are some streetlights out there, but not many. And at this particular area, it's kind of dark. And I stood there, standing against the streetlight, right on the edge of this ravine, just wishing I had night vision or something so I could see it, because it was screaming. And the minute I just softly said, I know you're there, I wish I could see you, it went quiet. And not another word after that. What was interesting though is when I started doing all this research, I thought I was tracking one family group on the island, okay? Because those are definitely two adult males in the Oak Harbor situation, or adult males. Two adult Bigfoot. You can't, I don't know what sex they are. There are two adults because of the size of the foot, anyway, doing it again. Anyway, those are two adult males, but we tracked a female and a juvenile on the south end of the island. Now, I used to think they used to cross over at Coopville. Just south of Coopville, there's a landfill. And I've had many reports, middle of the night, early morning, Bigfoot crossing over by people driving to or from the base or work or whatever. So I figured that was a crossover point. Well, it probably is, okay? But that's when I realized I was tracking two different groups on the island. And the situation when that in Coopville, in Admiral's Cove, which is south of Coopville, all of that is very dense forest going south. So it was very plain to see how they could come around, cross over the highway, and then keep going south, down to the south end of the island. So my wife actually got to hear him holler that day.
What did she think of that?
She thought it was great. She carries around like a bet. I've heard him now.
So now she's all into Bigfoot? And...
Oh yeah, she's all into it. Matter of fact, I used to do experiments out in the field when I used to take people up camping with me to like Ross Lake, marking stuff on tables because Bigfoot is insatiably curious. They'll come up and they'll examine something, put it back down, and you might not even know they were ever even there. But if you are very specific about marking stuff, you will see stuff move. It's not a bear, it's not a raccoon, because they're very indiscriminate animals. They're very loud, they're very obnoxious, they turn stuff over, they make a lot of noise. Bigfoot is very quiet. I hope you got the story from Ronnie about his Bigfoot experience in the tent.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so I've got the sound for that.
Good.
Yeah. Anyway, where else do you want to go?
All right, so the people that are involved in your church, do most of them know that you do this, or the people that you speak with, the people that are your constituents?
Yes and no. It's not something that's broadcasted. However, I do talk about it. One of the characters in my children's books is a Bigfoot. His name is Benny. And now I'm expanding Benny's world into his own Bigfoot Chronicles. So people who know me know that I'm into Bigfoot. I have coached a lot of people out to go out into the field to do stuff. Some of them are people that I know through ministry work. Otherwise, other than that, I'm not a pastor of a specific church. I'm more of a parachurch organization working with youth. The whole idea of Bigfoot, though, is it's a sense of mystery. I think God allows a point of mystery in our life to keep our sense of wonder about us, to keep us interested in life in general. When life is at its worst, we get our ultimate strength sometimes from God through the wonder that He created. And I tell people, because I've heard the Bigfoot is an animal and Bigfoot is a spirit being, type of deal, and it's all nonsense. Bigfoot is simply another creation of God for the purpose of bringing wonderment into man's life. Okay? It's not an evil thing. It's not a good thing. It's just another creature that God has created. And for those of us that choose to believe in it or not believe in it, that's our choice. It doesn't make it any less real or more real. Just like believing in God or not believing in God doesn't mean God doesn't exist. That's the height of arrogance, by the way. Saying that me as a person, just because I believe that something doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. That's arrogance. Okay? Things exist despite what people choose to believe or not believe in. Okay? So Bigfoot is a very real thing. And I've been asked many times as a pastor, as a minister, how can a minister or pastor believe in Bigfoot? Well, it's kind of easy to do once you've seen him up front and up close. Okay? Bigfoot has done things in my own eyewitness view that is impossible for a man to do. Like swimming across the Puget Sound. If it was a guy in an ape suit, he would have drowned 100 yards out or a half mile out. Okay? He would not have been able to make it. Just like the snow footage where the Bigfoot's walking in 3 or 4 feet of snow like it's no big deal up a mountain. A guy in an ape suit is not going to be able to do that. Just like in the Gimlin-Patterson film. You have supposedly this very tall gentleman wearing a football helmet and pads and a gorilla suit walking across a rocky riverbed. I walk across hundreds of rocky riverbeds and I'm lucky to make it all the way across just tripping in my own shoes. And this guy is going to do it wearing an ape suit. Okay? I don't think so. So there's other problems with that new I don't remember the guy's name now, the Reinhold or Ironheart or whatever, but saying that he had hand extenders and stuff like that. Well, the problem with that is Patty, what we call the Bigfoot in the Patterson-Gimlin film, if he had hand extenders and were walking with stilts, or in his case, hand extenders, you would have an unequal elbow. You would have a massive forearm, but a very little. It's not rocket science. It's just common physiology, It's taking other species, what they do, and saying, is there a correlation? Yes. Then it can be legitimized in certain things. Okay? It's not rocket science.
So you're 100% positive in the existence of Bigfoot?
Yes. It takes less faith to believe in Bigfoot than it does to believe in God. Okay? Because God is still an unknown and unseen. Okay? When you see something with your eyes, kind of like this log or these waves, and feel it, it doesn't take much to believe in it. So it takes very little faith.
And would science have an easier time proving the accounts of the Bible, or would it have an easier time proving the existence of God?
Well, not to say that there is a comparison between the two, but to a certain degree there is, because for science for many decades said, well, you can't prove the Bible archaeologically, scientifically, so on and so forth. Where if you go back through Scripture, you can see how in the Old Testament that God said that the earth revolved around the sun, okay? Or how dinosaurs existed, or how all these different things the Bible says happened. The dietary law is reflecting not so much that you can't eat this because of this or that, because I'm cruel, but you can't eat this because it's not good for you, okay? And now science is saying, oh, wait a minute, maybe there is some truth in that, okay? Just like the archaeological evidence, there's no evidence for this, that, or the other, this place. But now that archaeological science and time frames have changed, like in Egyptology, we now have evidence of burial pits or mass graves, and the Rosetta Stones revealing stones actually sent to the king of Egypt or the pharaoh by King Solomon, King David, King Saul. Okay. Where before they said, yeah, you can't prove it. Well, now we know. It's there. It's black and white. We have just as much, if not more, evidence that Bigfoot exists. Eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, feces, hair, bone, footprints with dermal ridges, handprints with dermal ridges. Okay? All this evidence exists, but they don't want to believe that either. Okay? And that is, to some people, more real than God is, because God is this great spirit that's ethereal and you can't see, taste, hear, smell him. But literally thousands of people every year in the United States alone, let alone around the world, because Bigfoot is actually a larger phenomenon. I believe Gigantopithecus was the original stream of Bigfoot. And our present Bigfoots today are subspecies of Gigantopithecus. That's why we have smaller Bigfoots in the south, we have bigger Bigfoots in the north. Some Bigfoots have rounded heads, some have cones, cone-shaped heads. It's just like a dog, okay, or a cat. There's other subspecies there as well. But anyway, I lost the train of thought of what your question was.
You pretty much answered it.
We're talking about thousands of sightings a year.
Yeah, there's thousands of sightings a year just in the United States alone. You can almost say there's more sightings of Bigfoot in the United States than there are for bear and cougar. But people refuse to believe it. And the reason why bear and cougar are so much easier to spot when they are sighted, or deer, is because they do not have the cognitive level that Bigfoot has. They don't have that higher thinking that says, I need to be quiet, like in Ronnie's situation, okay? Where it's makes a snap and stop to be quiet. Bear doesn't have that cognitive ability, okay? No animal does, but a Bigfoot does, which means they show a higher intelligence, a higher reason.
Great. I want to make sure I get the shots.
Did you guys ever hear about Zana? Zana.
No.
Zana is a very interesting situation. I've seen the pictures for years, but I never knew about it until I talked to Ronnie about it. Zana is from an Eastern Bloc country. I don't remember the name of the country. Zana was captured about 150 years ago by hunters. She was kept in a cage for 3 years until she finally was calm enough to interact. They cleaned her up, gave her clothing, and she started living among the community. Okay? Zana was given wine by several villagers, and she was impregnated 6 times by a human man. Okay? 6 times. She had 6 kids. 2 of which died because as she was cleaning them, mimicking the village women, she accidentally drowned them. But the other 4 kids, the village women took to raise as their own. Her offspring from these 4 kids are still alive today in this Russian country.
So what was Zana exactly?
She was a Bigfoot. I'll show you the picture.
So Zana was a Bigfoot.
If you had to take, without even looking at the pictures, the picture alone is phenomenal. Okay, because I have 2 of her in a dress. If you look at the picture, if you didn't have the picture of the Bigfoot, and you looked at the description of what they were describing in text, their first thought of a Bigfoot researcher is, man, they got a Bigfoot. The height, the massive size, the smells, the what they like and they dislike, what they eat, how their interaction, the color of their hair, the whole gamut. You go, that's a Bigfoot, okay? But then when you look at the picture, it freezes you. And you go, oh my God, what is that? Very profound.
Did you send me those pictures?
If you follow me back up, I'll actually show them to you. But I'll send them to you. You'll have to give me your email. But
That's
So the question that comes up is Bigfoot close enough to the human genome to breed with? And that brings up even more broader questions like because there's all kinds of accounts of over the millenniums of Bigfoot taking people into the forest, women. Has there been a crossbreeding going on? Okay, is that potential there? That's a very frightening thing for a lot of people to think, but it's interesting to think about.
what do their offspring do now?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm trying to contact, there's a Russian research organization over there, and I'm going to ask them if they've done any research on that, because I'm very curious about that.
That's great.
Yeah.
You want to get these shots before it gets dark?
Yeah.
I want to grab it. Is there anything else you want to add, or anything else?
There was something I was talking about just now, but go ahead and get your shots. Maybe I'll remember
I
it.
don't want to move the camera. I don't want to move him.
Okay, yeah. So he wants to keep this positioning. It's a perfect shot.
Okay.
So just take a minute to remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
You got a lot of good stuff. That story is crazy.
yeah, I actually did a Google search for Zana, and you got to kind of like not look at all the porn sites that comes up, but there's one little site there that says Zana. It's called cross hybridization or something like that, and all it is text, and it talks about Zana and where she's from and all the details. Very incredible stuff, and I'm surprised no one else has gone further on that. You guys already know about Jacko up north. Okay, yeah, Jacko, and how he was taken down to, or some people believe she was a she, taken down to San Francisco, cleaned, and shipped out to. Okay. No, there was something I forgot that I remembered, and then, but it was all about.
If you don't remember, it's all right. We'll be back here again. We'll be back and we do a follow-up interview or something.
That was actually a great interview. I think it was better than last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Clean
thought
the
that was
lenses
even better than last time. I want to get these shots. It's too foggy out here. It's too dark.
We need to go to where he is.
Right. We're gonna take it from your perspective here. That was great.
Yeah.
That's good.
You gotta see those pictures of that.
Yeah. It sucks that we have to get out here and do this twice, but I think this was actually better. And maybe we'll be back over there to do another one. I want to try to look into that whole thing. Yeah, Zana. How do you spell it?
I just went chilling in the beach for like 10 minutes. Relax. Just driving around the car. Feeling it. Seattle traffic is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, we just hit the Seattle 4:30 took the traffic here.
Can we go to an area where you guys are doing research? Or?
Well, if you'd like, if you want to go and do some bush, I could take you to the closest one I know of here, and that's just 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an easy way to get to. 2 women saw Sasquatch on the hillside 2 years ago. You know, we went and had a look at it, and then I wrote
Is that the same area where those streams are coming?
Yeah, not too far from there. That and the Coal Mountain next to it.
Cool. Would you want to do like an interview some in here, and then we could go out?
Yeah, we don't have the light in here.
It's up to you guys. It's your program.
Yeah. The light's just not gonna work good either.
Yeah, we
Turn
could
on
go-
the other one.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. And I keep all the footprint
This here?
things in here and.
What's this edge?
No, right there behind the one channel TV. Yeah, look at that.
Great.
See, I keep all the castings in there.
Oh wow.
Different castings, and then the next one over. I'm kind of crowded for space here, so that's not like that.
Yeah, you sacrificed a lot to
I'll
go find this
sacrifice a
guy.
lot, yeah. Yeah. So.
What angle from this topic are you guys hitting?
We're really interested in the people. You know, more than anything is the people, and also the phenomena. So we're kind of trying to.
Are you going to interview the weird? Well, I know some people consider all of us weird because we look into this thing, but like the real weird guys, like Eric Beckcher.
Eric Beckcher. The only reason why we would is to kind of paint the difference. So.
Yeah, because I don't know if I want to be associated with that maniac.
No, yeah.
No.
But basically, we don't really have an angle. We're giving actually everyone their own platform to. We're not going to put twists on anything. And I mean, this is new to us, so we haven't been able to weed out the crazy people within, because we've just been doing this for 3 or 4 months.
Anyone who talks about paranormal crap, UFOs associated with this thing, space aliens, other dimensions, Elvis Presley sightings, anything like that associated with Bigfoot is crap. Okay? If the animal's real, it's an animal. It's just unclassified or undiscovered. Probably a unique species of ape, or possibly some sort of offshoot. I know you disagree with me a little bit on this, but possibly an offshoot of off our tree line somewhere in the past. I don't think so. I tend to go along with John Green on this. I think it's an unclassified species of great ape. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just extremely rare. And nocturnal most of the time, though my stats don't back that up. And 1 for every 100 bear in any given area, and it's very reclusive and retiring, and it runs. That's why we haven't found it yet. That's how it is, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I pretty well stay on my own, and I keep the information I find to myself. I just share it with others who are experts in the field. And we do have disagreements, and we have agreements on certain things. And so I've had 3 sightings. The first sighting was more ape-like. The second one was more human-like. And the third one, it was a little bit darker, and the reactions were human reactions to what happened. But it wasn't a human because it was far too tall and was moving too fast. And then those are the ones that you see. A big animal like that living out in the bush has got to leave sign everywhere. And that's hard evidence. And a lot has been spoken about is for footprints. Of course, you can make casts, and you've got something you can hold in your hand and you can study it. There's a lot of things in the bush that you can't take out of the bush with you. There's they have to urinate. So when you urinate on mosses and other foliage, the acid in the urine is going to kill it. So you can, other animals do this too. Deer will do it. And you can go and see the size of the scrape. And if you're a tracker or a trapper, you'll understand how many times that's been visited. But a Sasquatch has different behavior. He'll just urinate in one spot and then move on. They're constantly moving. So the urination spot that you find where it's killed the foliage gives you a volume, over the area. You need a certain volume to kill that area of foliage. And that should give you some mathematical evidence as to the size of the animal. Like a horse, I got horses and I know how much they can urinate, etc., etc. So that's one piece of evidence that's out in the bush that you can't bring into the lab. And there's others like that too. Like they obviously, if they've been around for hundreds of years, they have reproductive cycles. And that evidence has got to be out there somehow. And the evidence is footprints, smaller urination packs beside the mother, or where the tracks are. Everything's related. So this is also evidence that you can't bring in. Even if you try to film it, it doesn't show up good, and you got to be there to actually experience it.
Yeah, there's been so many guys, like I've talked to so many people who said if they hadn't looked right at it, they never would have known it was there. They seem to have that uncanny ability to stand perfectly motionless while it's watching you. And one of yours was like that.
Yeah, the first one I encountered. He tried to hide from me for like 15 minutes.
And as soon as you look at it and it realizes it's been spotted, it turns and walks away. And you just see the unbelievable for a few moments before it disappears. You're left there wondering what the heck was that, And it's gone. And then you remember the camera you had in your pocket or something like that. And I've heard that time and time and time again. I have not seen a Sasquatch in 26 years of searching, but heck, I don't know if I've been near one or not, and just didn't look at the right spot at the right time. I don't know,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Almost drive you crazy, not.
Oh, well, I'd love to see one. No doubt about that. Yeah, I'd love to see one just to confirm I haven't wasted my life so badly. But, the way I look at it, let's suppose that the skeptics are right and there is no Sasquatch and there never has been. It's just a mythological creature, Well, if it is a mythological creature, myths are always based on something. Something gets it started. And if it is just a mythological creature, well, then it's a very important part of our Canadian and North American folklore and history, and that alone makes it worth cataloging and studying, So no, I don't look at it. If there is no Sasquatch, I don't look at it like I've wasted my life or something like that, because there's a mystery out there. We're just trying to find an answer one way or the other, whether or not there's something there or not.
Yeah, well, to me, it's not a mystery anymore.
No, I know. Well, I mean,
my 3 sightings are all accidental.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that if you go after these things and put an effort in to try and find one and film it, etc., you're guaranteed a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I've been looking since 1978 on my own, and I've written down in my logs where I've had perhaps close to 30 encounters, but I didn't actually see it. Heard screams or various things like that happening, and it's a thinking animal. I could have shot one. The second sighting I had, I was 60 feet away with a rifle in my hand. I could have shot it, but it sure looked human to me. And you're dealing with a human aspect of the mind and how it relates to nature, and you're accustomed to animals of different types, but not the form of a man that looks like the proverbial boogeyman, because it does something to your head. You've got to have I don't know how many times you got to run into them before you actually know how to understand them.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably never happen to anybody, but we're all keep trying, and Tom gets a lot of people phoning in. He gets information from his sources, and I get information. I've come across something in the bush, and slowly the book is filling up with information and facts, and the picture is becoming clearer and clearer. And over the years, people have thrown out some doubts and some reasons for questioning it. A few of these lately have been removed. We're making progress.
Mm-hmm.
It's never fast enough. But I think if anything does come up in the way of a body, it'll probably be accidental. maybe hit by a truck or something like that, or it will injure itself.
Or it may even be stranger. It may be a set of bones in a long-forgotten museum drawer someplace that some anthropology student came across. They've been sitting there for years and they had no idea what it was. That kind of thing. That's a distinct possibility in my opinion.
Yeah. How many calls have you gotten this year?
This year? Oh, well, like I said, the one, I never bothered counting them. This year, I'd say about 15, but they come from all over, right? The closest one, the last good one here that I was able to check was the Tim Martindale one, was Merritt, and he saw 2 creatures off the side of the highway as he drove past, and I tend to believe the man after talking to him that he really believes he saw something. At first he said he thought it was a man and his kid fishing because one was shorter than the other. And then as he passed it, he said the bigger one was kneeling in the water doing whatever it was doing, and the smaller one, and he said by small, about 5'8". He said it was just glaring at him, and he said he got the impression of the thing, it would kill me if it had the chance. That's what he said. And so he didn't stop, but he kept going. But what was really interesting is when I talked to his wife, because the whole reason he was going to Kamloops in the first place was to pick up their wife because their little girl was getting orthodontic surgery done. And she said for some reason he was totally silent and quiet, didn't ask how the operation went or nothing. And they were over halfway back to Merritt before he finally said what he saw, And she said he's never reacted. I knew he was preoccupied with something, But this good eyewitness reports continue on all the time. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bogus stuff. And the media tends to jump, as John was saying, the media, especially in America, it seems that the media tends to jump on every hoax claim, tooth, line, and sinker, and they don't seem to want to listen to any explanation to the contrary, like the Ray Wallace thing 2 years ago. And his family came out and said because of this one set of wooden feet that he had, that he faked everything that's ever been found, which is absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
More recently, Craig Long's book about the Patterson film. It's just a thesis about a bunch of people who didn't like Roger Patterson, basically. And one man's claimed that he wore the suit, and he's about the 4th one in that, and the last one used to claim that. So, and again, everyone said, "Oh, this proves it. It's all fake." And then it takes a year, 2 years to get everyone to say, "No, it's not. No,
at
it's
least
not. Look at this, and all that stuff." And that's the kind of thing that goes on and on and on, over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's most distressing. That's probably one of the reasons why I like to stay by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I went to one symposium, a few, maybe 3 at the most, and unfortunately they had UFOs and paranormal characters there as well. And I don't think that the two should be connected at all. Mm-hmm. Why aren't the paranormal connected with black bears and grizzly bears? I know the answer to that is we haven't got a body, right?
I absolutely detest it when the paranormal part comes in.
Yeah,
because
it's
those people are the main reason that serious organizations like the Smithsonian and the National Geographic Society have never gotten involved.
Absolutely.
When people start talking about that really weird stuff, they come from spaceships, they're star people, they're from the 3rd dimension, and you try to question them and they got a paranormal answer to answer the paranormal question. It just goes in a vicious circle. But you can't call a lot of these people, you can't call them liars because they really believe this stuff, and we tend to politely refer to them as the lunatic fringe.
Like Eric Beckyard.
Beckyard's the king fringer of them all. Yeah.
And he's just hated by everybody, right?
Well, he's not hated by other paranormalists. He's not hated. He's like a rash that won't go away.
I talked to him on the phone for probably.
I actually like the man, but he's a nice guy.
Apparently he's a member of Mensa or something as well. I was told.
Could be, yeah, but I don't know. But
it's ironic.
Yeah. It's not just us. It's he also shows up with these UFO things and pisses everyone off there too. But like the one you're talking about, he showed up with his ET mask on.
Was he the fellow who was arrested at one of these and taken away?
Well, yeah, he was kicked out. Yeah. And then he went prancing up and down outside handing out pamphlets saying how we conspired with the government to have him evicted from the conference and all that. Okay, it was his own insane behavior that did it. Yeah.
I got a question. So do you guys do research basically for your own Or
I've been obsessed with this ever since I was old enough to read. That's the reason why I do it. I mean, everything. The whole reason I moved here to the West Coast, I was driving here so much from the Alberta Rockies every year. I thought I might as well move here and just do it. And I figured I'm 40 years old now. If I don't do it, I never will. You know, because in the Alberta, you see on that map there are reports and stuff from the eastern part of the province too, in the western part of Alberta, where the Rocky Mountains start. It's just as beautiful and scenic and wild as here, but it's different. It's higher alpine country, you know, and I tend to think the answer is here in the Pacific Northwest, the rainforest, because for everything that happens everywhere else, there seems to be twice as much here. And quite frankly, a lot of the stuff from the east, I find rather dubious. I put in there with the lunatic fringe.
From the south too.
Yeah, quite a bit of it. Yeah. Not all of it, but some of it. Yeah. Like you were talking about Louisiana and that area of Louisiana. There's been reports there going back there for years. So there's
that's a three-toed creature there, isn't it?
Yeah, some of them.
Quadrupedal.
Yeah, it seems to be similar to the very same thing that was been reported in the Sulphur River bottoms and around Folk, Arkansas over the years. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very similar.
Smoky crabtree.
Smoky crabtree.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
They
you
call
guys,
it.
do you believe in that though?
I don't know. It's hard enough to believe that there's one Sasquatch, but tell me there's several different subspecies. Now you're really stretching it.
Well, I don't know.
It's possible,
Yeah,
but you know, it's
I wouldn't
again.
want an opinion on that right now.
Yeah.
Because we don't have enough
Yeah.
evidence. But
I mean, a lot of people out
something
here
there.
think the East is all paved. You know, it's not. I've been to Ohio and Pennsylvania. You know, in Eastern Canada, well, Ontario has more
It's not like
miles
here,
of
though.
wilderness than BC does. So
It's not like here. I mean,
no,
there's-
it's different. It's more
there's-
humid and more. To tell you the honest truth, it's more suitable to something like this than this area is. Really, in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Do you want to switch positions though? If you want to stand here,
Mhm.
easier for you. No, it's alright. Okay.
Mhm.
Sorry.
You asked me why I do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's adventure. Living out in
Great
this
adventure.
part of the world is adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to hunt. So you can combine the two together. And,
Oh, I'll let them get that downstairs.
but just think for a moment. Somebody someplace one day, if they get lucky, and they can shoot one or bring one in or tranquilize it, however method they do it, what is that going to do for science and the world and understanding? I mean, it's just going to be a huge shock. It's going to turn everything upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are going to have to eat the crow.
Yeah.
But not only that, there's that aspect. You got fame involved. You can't help if you publicize that you have one and you come up with the evidence. You're going to be a household name for generations. And then, of course, in our capitalist system we have, people are going to make money off it. So there is the possibility of making millions of dollars on it. Even just allowing people at universities to come in and study it. You know, you get the rights to it or whatever, or somebody's going to have rights to it. And a university over here would love to send some students, and okay, it's going to cost you $20,000. You can look at it for a week. And then, you know, instead of who knows what else, right? But there's all those things involved in it. The camaraderie is terrific. You know, guys like Tom and John Green and things like that. But I guess the big question is, or the big answer is the question. It's the biggest question I can think of right now that you can actually get your hands into. You know, if you see a UFO, how do you go and investigate a UFO? It was up in the sky and it's gone, it's there. If there's a footprint in the ground and there's damage and where it slept here and if it killed something here and pulled it apart, okay, you can actually go there and get your hands into the dirt where it was. You see, so you can actually live the experience to a certain extent. So all those things kind of appeal to me in a way, and you know, I like being out in British Columbia in the mountains. It's mild winters. And I can walk just out of here 10 minutes, and there's places where man has never been.
Mm-hmm.
It may be on a 45-degree angle, but you know, it's adventurous.
And the three that you saw, you're 100% confident what you saw?
Oh yeah, because I'll tell you, the first time, it was like all three are accidental. I was on a dirt bike testing it out because I just rebuilt the carburetor. I had my wolf dog with me, taking him for a run at the same time. I stopped because he was getting tired. And then his hair go up in the back of his neck, and he got a scent, and he starts going like this, and he starts heading up the hill. This is a logged off area, so the foliage wasn't very big, very tall, but loaded in berries. A couple of years after you do a clear cut, you get lots of berries. Good food, right? You get a lot of bears in there. So he's going up the hill in that direction. I look up, the sun was just in a certain angle from me on the creature, and you could tell the hair, because the sun was glistening off the hair and giving a blue hue to it. It was black. And I knew what it was instantly, because I've been in it since 1978. And I had this sighting in 97. So I had wondered if I ever get to see one. And I said to myself, I called the dog the wolf back right away, because I didn't want him to cause a problem here. I was unarmed and unprepared for anything like this. So I called the wolf back. He came back to me, and then I said to myself, it's happened. It's finally happened, but you're completely unprepared for this. The motorbike was in one direction. I had to jump on the bike to get out of there if the thing was coming for me. I didn't know what was going to happen. But he didn't make any move. I realized it was trying to hide on me, and it figured that I hadn't seen it yet. So I had several minutes to pretend that I didn't see it, but I could observe it, glance up. Okay, so it was trying to hide behind a burned out stump. Sometimes the logging companies will burn an area out to cause regeneration faster and clear up the scrap. So it was squatted down and had its hand on this stump. The stump was about this tall, and it was squatted down, holding on. The other hand was kind of in a contorted arrangement, holding on to what we call a maple vine sapling, vine maple, we have them out here. And it was remaining motionless. But I had enough pre-thinking about this happening to study it. So I said, okay, the deltoid muscle is touching the burned out stump. The deltoid on the other side is by this sapling. So I can go back and measure. I can do this, I can do that. So minutes were going by, at least 10 minutes. Not 15, between 10 and 15 minutes. So at that point I said, well, the creature's been holding his arm out that way, and it's been squatted down. It's going to have to move sooner or later, and then it's going to reveal itself. I got to get out of here before that happens. So I turned the bike around and I took off. As I was leaving, I knew nothing was chasing me or anything. I said, well, I got to go back. So I turned around and went back again, a few hundred yards back, and it was gone. I knew instantly it was gone, and I could hear it crashing up the hill going into the trees. So I headed back and recorded in a tape recorder as much as I could remember. So time goes by, you forget. So I can always replay that back and remember it better, because I knew I'd be telling it to certain people in the future. And I let 3 weeks go by, because the hillside was covered in berries, and I was hoping that would attract it back again. And if I was smart enough and lucky enough, I might get a better shot at some kind of movement involved. Never happened. So after 3 weeks of waiting, I went back to the spot. You could see where the 2 feet were. They're actually very close together for an animal that size. And I measured the distance where the deltoid was touching the stump on that side, and I measured the distance over to the sapling. It was 54 inches. And I wish I do have a measuring tape with me. It'll take too long to get it out. If you take out a measuring tape and go 54 inches, that's when I got the shock of my life. Or that'll go 54. What do you got?
54.
All right, let me hold that up. That's shoulder to shoulder. Okay, that's how big that was. It was I measured a distance around 120 feet. That's how far I was away from it. And then I remembered that the head too. The head from the face to the back of the head had got to be that big. It was just massive, this thing, and that was due to the thickness of the muscles in the back of its neck. Had got to be like that thick through. So what else can I tell you about it? The skin is black. The sun was shining, but the only place you could see the skin was around the eyes and just the cheekbones here and a bit of the nose, and it was a flat black. The eyes were dark black, I would assume, and it had a big brow ridge here. Above the brow ridge, it was slanting back. It had another ridge of muscle or cartilage or something, and then it had another ridge at the top of the head, and it rounded off in a point, like a rounded point at the back of the head. So I remember that. I tried to observe the hands as best I could. I knew that they were different than a human hand, but I never really knew why until years later, And the finger length in a human to the palm is very, very symmetrical. They're about the same distance. But what I think I seen that day was the length of the palm is a lot longer, and it makes the thumb look detached from the fingers. I think that's what I see.
A non-opposing thumb is what you're saying.
Well, if that's what the technical term is, I guess that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that when it was holding on to the stump, it wasn't a human grip on it. It was a different, I really couldn't tell. And using the pictures from the Patterson film and the still photos that are taken off of that film, and measuring those, and other fellows who have gone before me have done elaborate studies of it, I had that information to work with. And knowing the measurements that I had, I placed the height of the creature that I seen at slightly over 10 feet, and estimated its weight at about 1,100 pounds. So obviously it was a male. The second one I seen was totally different. It was a young one, maybe 6 feet tall. It was totally curious, and that story would take some telling. I was out bear hunting with another guy, and we ran into it, and it didn't leave the area. It was, I could take it to the actual spot. I can take it to all these.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's amazing, like how specific, the details are in that.
Well, in this part of the country, it's gotten to the point now where if you take an average town like Mission or Hadsick and stuff, and you get everyone on a certain street together and say, who here has seen a Sasquatch? Well, of course, 90% of them say, oh, yeah, what are you talking about? But there'll be one or two.
That happened to me this morning.
Yeah, there'll be
The
one or two.
helicopter came in, they're logging, right? So the helicopter landed. I was talking to the pilot and the co-pilot, and they were waiting for their foreman to come along, and the foreman comes along. And I said, we're just having a discussion here about Sasquatch around this area. And the foreman says, oh yeah, they're around here. And I said, well, have you seen something? He said, yeah, I've seen footprints before. I never met this guy in my life. Right? So I didn't.
And those signs I got out my doors is the same sort of thing. I was just up there trying to catch I thought I'd go up and watch the last period of Canada beating Slovakia in the hockey game there. And two guys came out of the bar and they said, oh, you're that guy. I want to talk to you. He says, and then he was in a hurry to get out, so he gave me a car. I saw something. He hasn't phoned yet. I'm still waiting to hear what he's got to say.
Yeah, when I was driving around with Tom, with his vehicle, and it says on the side, Sasquatch Research with the phone number, we were in at a gas station, and a woman was just paying for her gas and coming out, and she looked over and seen the sign, the change on her face, and I had the window down. It was the summertime. I was waiting for her to come over to tell me something, and she wanted to. It meant something to her, and she wanted to, but then she was hesitating, and then eventually she didn't. She walked up. I said, wasn't that strange? Mm-hmm. Sasquatch triggered. She must have had an experience.
Yeah, because most people who see these things, they tell one or two people about it. They're told they're crazy, so they shut up about it.
Yeah.
Because despite the history and the rich folklore and stuff like that associated with this, in this part of the country, there's still that label that gets put on you if you come out publicly saying you've seen one of these things. That's really unfortunate. It really is. Yeah.
I think once the scientific world finally makes a commitment, that they can have confidence in and say, we have the evidence now, and now we're officially saying that this creature is existing. Then you might have people relaxing back in their homes when they see it on TV and say, then I can tell my story. They might have thousands of them pouring out all of a sudden. We don't know how many people just keep quiet because the scientific world at the present time has said no, it doesn't exist officially.
Was it hard for you guys to come out and start talking about it?
Oh, hell no. I was always... I remember my father telling my mother, don't worry, he'll grow out of it someday. It didn't happen.
I have had people say to me, that thing doesn't exist, I don't care.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, I think the strangest thing I ever had was when I was still in Alberta, and I pulled into this campground, and there was this guy there, they had his little son with him, and he was pumping at the hand pump, and he saw the size of the door, and he said, what a lot of nonsense, what are you wasting getting your mind? I said, boy, you sure like to show your ignorance in front of your kid, don't you? I almost got in a fight with the guy. He saw that, and he was so offended by it for some reason. And apparently the exhibition we just opened in the Vancouver Museum. Did you guys go there?
We were going to, but
Oh, you gotta go there before you leave.
really,
Yeah.
Chris Murphy's. Is that what it is? No, not Chris Murphy.
Well,
Yeah.
Chris Murphy helped put it together. We all helped put it together, but Chris Murphy was running it. We published that book. Just grab that book off there, John. I don't know if you've seen it, but this came out with it. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, we put that up with it. Yeah. Oop. Yeah. And well, some visiting anthropologist from apparently Norway wrote, "What a load of crap! Why are you putting this thing in? You know, it's nothing but nonsense anyway. Everything's been proven to be fake. Blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah. You know, and that's the kind, and it's just too bad. You know?
I've told a sighting story to some
Yeah.
people, and I figured to myself, hey, I gave the guy a pretty good effort that time. I gave him enough information that should convince him. And then they say, after they heard the story from me, firsthand, from the guy who's seen it, they say, well, you know, I wonder about that. So after you've told, there's a guy standing in front of him who's actually seen it. And they still, for some reason, something in the human mind, they don't want to accept it. They just rather, I don't know
Yeah.
what they want to do with it. I don't know. It's
But the biggest thing really that happened, and unfortunately it's also a lot of the junk, is with the internet. You know, information passes so quick. There used to be guys like me and you and John who had files of people we talked to. I still do. Like when someone phoned, I interview someone who talks to me, I put it all in a file folder report like this, say, and store it away. This is all British Columbia, these two.
yeah, this is like Fort Knox
Right?
here.
Right?
This is-
And then Washington, Oregon, Northern California, Alberta there, the archives there, stuff going back years. And that's what it was. But now with the internet, holy cow. I mean, this stuff was outstripped within 2 years when people phone in. But of course, 90% of it's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
People just like, you know, I saw a big hairy monster eat picked by a